Hey guys, thanks for joining me. In today's video, we're going to take another look at something that I reviewed a couple of months back, maybe 3 months ago or so. This is a battery by VTERUN, 100 amp hour battery, and it had some cool features on it that I thought might be pretty interesting and useful to a lot of you guys. And it did do very well in my tests. However, recently, another YouTuber named Jason did a review on this battery, or at least started to, and he found much the same performance benefits that I found out of this battery, but he took it a step further and he got into the case and found some things that he was concerned about. So I was very curious about that. In fact, one of them that he pointed out was that on the 12 volt socket on the side, that inside there is an undergauged wire potentially, and there is a lack of a fuse. And then he also found some other things in his battery that gave him concerns about whether or not the claims they were making on the battery cells were actually true. So it occurred to me that that there's probably some value for me to get into this battery and see if I have the same concerns on the inside of this battery. Now, I've already taken down the original review as soon as I saw what he had found, because it's enough of a concern that I didn't want to continue to promote a battery that had potentially a serious problem. So I've taken that video down, and I'm going to get inside this and see if I find similar things to what he found. Or whether maybe there was kind of an unusual circumstance in his case. All right, so without any further ado, let me get this thing on my other bench. I don't want to do it in here in case I run into a problem. And we'll see if I can get inside this, and we'll take a look and see what we find. All right, I got the top off, and you can see that was not a non-destructive removal. I had to really tear into this thing to get that top off. It was not coming off easily. Unlike Jason, when he took his apart, my BMS was very securely adhesed to this foam, and I had to, with great amount of effort, pry it up. And I'm trying to get the foam underneath it up as well. I can already see that one of the QR codes on my unit is perfectly visible. That's why I want to get this foam layer off there so I can take a look at the vents and the QR codes. But so far, the one that I can see has not been scratched off like the QR codes on the unit that Jason reviewed. So far, my setup is looking a little more reasonable than the one that he saw. But let me see what I can do to get to the rest of the battery cells. All right, so finally did get all that foam up, and it was in there extremely securely, I have to say. In fact, I pulled off some of this little plastic layer, getting that last bit of foam up. But even underneath the little plastic insulating layer there, you can see the QR codes are plainly visible on my version on all 4 of these cells. And in addition to that, I don't see anything that would give me pause as far as these pressure relief vents that are on the top. Jason said he saw some discoloration on 1 or 2 of them. I do not see that on my cells at all. There's no residue in there. They are looking perfectly normal. So at least from a cell quality standpoint, I don't see anything that gives me any cause for alarm. I might try and scan one of these QR codes just to see what we can find. All right, so what's the verdict on this VTERUN battery? Well, since my QR codes were not scratched off and they were completely visible, I was able to look up those codes on a website, which kind of deciphers that string and tells me what the date of manufacture is. And all 4 of these batteries were manufactured in the middle of December of 2024. Now, I did the review on this battery back in September. So these batteries were approximately 9 months old by the time I got it into my hands. And so that pretty much rules out that these are refurbed batteries or secondhand batteries. They would not have been that new in that particular case. So I'm pretty confident about that. Now, on the 18 gauge wire issue, now the reality of that is because the wire gauge and its ampacity, or ability to handle current, is also directly related to the length of the wire, because the longer the wire, the more overall resistance you're going to have, and the less overall current it's going to be able to handle. You also get voltage drop in those long wires. Now, in the case of these little 12 volt sockets on here, using 18 gauge wire, while it is not necessarily ideal, it's not really a divergence from industry standard. In fact, if you buy In fact, I'll probably put a little picture up here because I know I'll find this on Amazon. If you buy one of these little 12 volt socket kits from Amazon, they typically come with 18 gauge wire as standard. And that's because they usually have an inline fuse that is set for 12 amps. And that's actually what is in here, inline fuses that are 250 volt rated at up to 12 amps. And that's actually plenty for 18 gauge wire, because 18 gauge wire in lengths of less than 3 feet is typically rated for upwards of, if it's in a open air, that wire is rated for a full like 16 amps. And in an enclosed conduit or something like that, it's rated for 12 amps. And so being in a battery like this, I think that that wire is technically rated, especially in those very short links that are involved, at about 12 amps. And you have a fuse in here that is also set to 12 amps. And these little 12 volt connectors are not typically rated for more than about 10 amps anyway. So, you know, I think under normal use, as long as they are fused, there was really nothing with this battery that I saw that, had I got into this when I did the other review, nothing inside here really gave me concerns that something was amiss. Now, that was a very different circumstance than what Jason found. But I only point this out in my case because I feel a little bit like he was throwing me and a couple of other YouTubers under the bus because we didn't get into these. But the reality of it is, even if I had opened this up, I wouldn't have found anything like what he found. But what that does tell me is that because his was not fused properly and his batteries had those QR codes scratched off, it's a very different circumstance. So I absolutely was reason to be alarmed on his side. And the fact that my result is different does raise the question about whether VTERUN had a problem in either their distribution or who's ever doing the assembly for these, or if they're doing it, you know, did they change something to sort of cheapen them up? You know, I don't know. I'm not sure. It's really hard to say. But what I can say is that my confidence in what they're putting out right now is pretty low, because there should not have been that kind of variance between what I'm seeing and what Jason found, you know, 4 months after I did my review. So there's definitely something going on that's should give VTERUN pause to kind of reevaluate what they're doing in the market. So for that reason, I'm going to leave my original review video unlisted now, because I don't really feel comfortable promoting it. It's going to take some time, I think, with multiple reviewers getting inside these and having consistent good results before we can have a higher confidence that what they're doing is putting out proper product. You know, this one would have been fine, but you know, Jason's clearly was not. So anyway, I think this was a worthwhile exercise. It was certainly interesting for me to get in there and see and actually notice that the unit I got was pretty dramatically different on the inside from what the one Jason had. So anyway, do with that information whatever you will. I will not be promoting this until I have a much more well-grounded confidence in what they're putting out there. And anyway, hopefully you found it helpful. I do thank you for joining me for this video, and hope you'll consider joining me for the next one. Until then, have fun out there.